Welcome to the deep dive. Ever looked at a really simple dish, something you think you totally get, and then find out there's this whole world hidden inside it?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's what we're doing today. We're talking about Rösti. You know, the Swiss potato cake.
The classic. Looks straightforward, doesn't it?
Totally. Like maybe a fancier hash brown. Well, yeah, it turns out there's a massive story packed in there. History, farming, even national identity, and surprisingly, some serious cooking science.
Exactly. It's a fantastic example, really, of food being both comfort and culture.
Wow.
So our mission today, essentially, is to unpack the sources we've looked at.
Right.
We've got things like the Berner Kochbuch from way back in 1818, historical dictionaries, some great stuff from the ETH Zurich food archives.
Okay.
And the idea is to see how this really humble dish, starting out as just breakfast for farmers in Bern, somehow became this powerful symbol for Switzerland. A symbol of unity, but also precision. And it manages to bridge this famous cultural gap they have.
A culinary bridge. I like that. Okay, so origins. If it's this huge symbolic thing now, you'd think it maybe came from, I don't know, some big official moment, a king's feast.
Not quite. No, the story is actually wonderfully humble. It all starts in the Bern canton, the Bernese region.
Okay.
We're talking like 18th, early 19th century,
Yeah.
Purely rural life. Nothing grand about it initially.
So why potatoes? Why this specific preparation? What made it stick and become such a staple?
Well, it was just pure practicality. You have to picture these Bernese dairy farmers. They needed something really substantial for breakfast.
Right, fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
High-calorie, dense food to keep them going for hours out in the fields before they'd get another chance to eat. It's food born from necessity,
Yeah.
using the crop that was available and hardy the potato.
And that 1818 cookbook, the Berner Kochbuch,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically where it gets written down for the first time, like making it official.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the first documented mention we have. It sort of canonized what people were already eating in that region.
Makes sense.
And the name itself, Rösti, it's simple too. Comes straight from the German verb rösten, to roast or to fry. And actually, a little detail from the archives, the original spelling in Bern was apparently Rösti.
Rösti.
Yeah. And then as potato farming just spread across Switzerland during the 19th century, this hearty local breakfast kind of naturally went with it. Slowly, it shifts from just being a farmer's breakfast to something recognized more nationally.
It's interesting, though, how something so functional, so basic, gets picked up everywhere. It wasn't about showing off, was it? No fancy ingredients.
Not at all. And I think that universality is actually key to why it lasted and why it could eventually take on that bigger symbolic role we mentioned. It started local, but because it's delicious and the basic idea is simple, anyone could adopt it.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The technique. Because this is where I think a lot of us, try it at home and it just doesn't work.
Right. Disaster looms.
Yeah. You think, it's just grated potatoes fried in a pan. How hard can it be? And then you get, burnt outside, raw middle, or maybe worse, just a big pile of soggy potato wash.
That happens a lot. And it's because, it looks simple, but getting Rösti right is actually a masterclass in preparation. You want that perfect texture.
Definitely. Crispy, golden on the outside.
And soft and tender inside, yeah. To get that, you need to follow some very specific steps. And it really comes down to understanding the potato starch. That's the aha moment.
Okay, all right. Lay it on us. How do we avoid the dreaded potato sludge? Where do you start?
First thing, potato selection. Absolutely crucial. You have to use medium starch varieties.
Okay, like what?
Well, sources often mention things like Agria, Charlotte, maybe Yukon Gold if you're in North America. What you don't want are those really high starch potatoes like russets that you'd use for, say, fluffy mash.
Huh. Why not russets?
Yeah.
I feel like those are the standard grating potato.
They are for some things. But for Rösti, they hold too much water and their starch gets really gluey, really fast when heated. So the pro technique to deal with the starch is parboiling.
Parboiling, so not cooking them all the way through.
Exactly. Only cook them maybe halfway, just enough so they're slightly tender but still hold their structure firmly.
Yeah.
If you boil them fully, they'll just fall apart when you try to grate them. Parboiling sets them up.
That makes sense structurally.
Okay.
But I think the biggest secret, the one I saw mentioned that requires serious patience, it almost feels wrong for something you want to eat soon.
Ah, yes. The cooling step.
That's the one.
After parboiling, the potatoes absolutely must be cooled down completely, preferably overnight in the fridge. Seriously. Non-negotiable if you want the best result. What happens is that chilling process changes some of the starch. It becomes what's called resistant starch. And that dramatically stabilizes the potato shreds when you grate them. They hold their shape better, they don't clump together, they don't release as much water in the pan. If you grate warm, freshly boiled potatoes, you're basically guaranteeing a gluey mess.
Wow. So you're looking at almost a full day's wait just to grate the potato properly. That level of commitment, that feels very Swiss, actually. Precision.
It is. Respect the process.
All right. So potatoes are prepped perfectly, cooled overnight, grated. Now, the pan. How do we get that incredible crust?
Slow. Even heat is your friend here. And you really need a heavy bottom pan. Cast iron is ideal.
Okay. And fat, butter, oil.
Well, authentic Rösti screams for Swiss butter for the flavor. But the sort of chef's trick is to mix in a little bit of neutral oil with the butter.
Why is that?
Butter on its own has a low smoke point. It'll likely burn before the potatoes cook through properly and get that deep golden crust. The oil raises the smoke point, gives you more time.
Ah, smart. And once it's in the pan, resist the urge to fiddle.
Absolutely. Commit. Get the grated potato in, flatten it gently into an even cake, not too thick, not too thin, and then leave it alone.
Patience again.
Let that crust form properly on the bottom. Don't rush it. When it's beautifully golden and releases easily, then you flip it carefully and cook the other side.
And serving. You said it started as breakfast, but that's not so common now.
Less common for breakfast,
Yeah.
yeah. Today, you'll most often see it as a side dish, especially with really classic Swiss meals.
Like what? Give us an example.
Oh, the absolute classic pairing is Zürcher
Which is?
Zurich-style sliced veal. It's usually in this incredibly rich cream and mushroom sauce. And the Rösti is just perfect for soaking all that up.
Okay, I can picture that. And seasoning for the Rösti itself. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Salt and pepper. That's really all the classic version needs, reflecting those humble origins. I mean, sure, you find modern versions now. People add grated Gruyere or bacon bits, onions, even apple slices sometimes.
Right.
But the pure original form is just potato, fat, salt, pepper, done perfectly.
Okay, let's zoom back out. We've got the humble farm origins. We've got the surprisingly tricky technique. Now, the really fascinating bit, the cultural symbolism. How on earth does a fried potato cake end up summarizing a whole national identity and even mapping its, political fault lines?
Yeah, this is the core of it, isn't it? The deep dive payoff. We have to talk about the Röstigraben.
The Röstigraben. Okay, what does that mean?
Literally, it translates to the rusty ditch.
The Rösti ditch.
Yeah. It's this widely used metaphor in Switzerland to describe the cultural, linguistic, and sometimes political differences between the German-speaking part of the country and the French-speaking part.
Wow. So the potato dish literally defines the divide. It's the imaginary line on the map separating the German-influenced Swiss from the French-influenced Swiss.
That's exactly the idea. The German-speaking Swiss generally might feel culturally closer to Germany, while the French-speaking Swiss, sometimes called the Welsh, might lean more towards French culture. And historically, you can even see differences in how they vote on national referendums. It's a real, observable cultural boundary.
Okay, but here's the twist, right? The paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though the dish's name defines the barrier, everybody eats it on both sides.
Precisely. That's what makes it so fascinating. It's both the ditch and the bridge across it.
How so?
While people use the term Röstigraben to talk about their differences, nobody actually rejects the Rösti itself. The dish is enjoyed everywhere. It's this constant, comforting, shared piece of their culinary heritage. So while, say, the German-speaking side might traditionally think of it more as a breakfast or brunch food.
Right, the farmer origin.
Exactly. The French-speaking side might be more likely to eat it for lunch or dinner, maybe with that veal dish we mentioned. But they both eat it. They both embrace it. It's a shared tradition that kind of transcends the political or linguistic friction.
That's actually quite powerful symbolism when you think about it. It suggests that maybe underneath the politics or the language differences, there's this core shared history, this shared love for tradition and good, simple food. And it's all wrapped up in this potato cake.
I think it speaks volumes about the Swiss character, or at least an ideal of it, and that's why you see Rösti served on Swiss National Day, August 1st.
Oh, okay.
It represents national pride, yes, but also that respect for simple ingredients, the importance of doing things well, that precision again, and a connection to tradition. And its status is official, too. Back in 2002, the Helvetia Culinary Heritage Database formally listed Rösti as a protected regional dish originating in Bern. It cemented its place.
So if you had to pick just one dish to try and understand Switzerland, Maybe Rösti's it looks simple, but it's technically demanding. It's a symbol of division, the Röstigraben, but it's also the thing that connects everyone.
It really is. It's history sizzling in butter, isn't it? It embodies so much. That Swiss emphasis on quality, comfort from simple things done right, precision, tradition. It shows how often the foods that start out from pure necessity end up carrying the deepest cultural meaning, the soul of a country almost.
It definitely makes you think. What's the simple everyday dish in your own region, maybe your own family, that holds that kind of quiet significance? If Rösti can be both the name for a cultural divide and the food that bridges it, what other traditional meals out there are doing that same work, maybe without us even realizing it, uniting people despite their differences?
It's a great question. Think about the simplest food that you or people around you prepare with real care and pride. That link between necessity, tradition, doing it just right, that's often where you find the key to a culture's deeper story. Food is never just food, is it?
Something to chew on for sure. Thanks for diving up with us today.